There you go.
Hello and welcome to the Let's Talk Seahawks podcast. I'm your host, Robert Smith, along with my co-host, Adam Carver-Stellman. Today, we'll be going over our top 10 prospects for the interior offensive line. Adam, let's talk Seahawks.
Let's talk draft because it's coming.
Yes, it is. I think interior offensive line is a position of need. I mean, we signed Evan Brown to be a center. He has guard experience as well. We have people at every position that could play well and start for us, but I think we need to bring in some talent. I think we need a legitimate starter at right guard. And then I think we need to have some backups. We don't have a lot of depth on the O-line right now.
Yeah, look, the guys that we've got signed right now, and I'm counting Phil Haynes because even though he did sign a 2-year deal, it is essentially a 1-year deal. And then with you go to the other side of the interior offensive line, Damian Lewis has been up and down. He had a great rookie year, and he had kind of a down sophomore year, and then back up a little bit late in the year last year. So I think they want to see it again from him before deciding on whether or not to extend him. So yeah, I fully expect them to kind of take advantage of this, again, deep offensive line class and bring in some guys to compete and push those other guys. I think they want Phil Haynes to be their starter. I do. I believe that John Schneider and Pete Carroll, when they say that they love this guy and they think he's still developing and an ascending player, but I think they've got to see it. And, the mantra is always compete. So I definitely see them bringing in at least a couple of guys to compete for those 3 offensive interior spots.
Yeah, and I'd love to see it. I also have faith that if somebody does step up, they will put the correct player in the position and not just stick with a guy they think has potential. All right, so let's get underway. Here we go. So we'll be doing this top 10 as it breaks down. Adam and I will give our top 5 as they rank on our board. And then we'll do some late round prospects. We'll do some middle round prospects just as people to watch out for and kind of guys that we like in this draft. And so we're going to start at 10. These are our late round guys. And at 10, I have McClendon Curtis out of University of Tennessee-Chattanooga. And Adam has Juice Scruggs, a primary center prospect out of Penn State.
Yeah, the guy with the worst name in this class and the guy with the best name in this class, I think, is who we got right here.
There you go. So I like McClendon Curtis. He's got good strength. He's a real high effort blocker. This guy is not somebody who's going to take plays off. He's going to give everything his all. And sometimes that kind of bites him back. He is a guy who can get off balance when he's run blocking. He leans pretty far over, and sometimes he ends up getting the bulk of his mass over his feet, over his toes, and that can cause him to go off balance going forward, which then he can't adjust when he needs to adjust when he is run blocking. So that would be a negative on him, but real good strength, high effort guy, just somebody I like there as a developmental depth late round guy.
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't take a lot of notes on Mr. Curtis here, but yeah, I mean, he's a big dude. He's over 6'6", he's over 300 pounds. He's another one of those guys, like you said, a high motor. He definitely finishes plays. That's the one thing that I think through all the scouting that I've read about him is that he is a finisher. So high motor guy. I think the Seahawks always love to see that. This, like we already said, this is a really deep offensive line class, and there's a chance that a lot of these guys that we're highlighting could go a little bit higher. I don't know if that's the case with Curtis. I definitely think Scruggs, my guy, could go a little bit higher than a late 6th round. I don't think he's higher than a 4th round guy. He's definitely a day 3 guy, but I think there's a possibility that he jumps up and is taken pretty early on that 3rd day. And depending on how the board falls, there's a chance that Curtis is the same. I know he's in that same kind of rating. I think he's rated as like a 5th or 6th rounder. So both of these guys have legit chances to be drafted.
Yeah, definitely. I'm only guaranteed that Juice Scruggs is going to get drafted. I don't think Juice Scruggs falls past the 5th round. I mean,
how
him.
could he with that name?
Yeah, exactly. A part of the all-name team.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the name that's the thing that initially stood out. Like, I mean, me, I generally watch football to enjoy it. I'm not a real analytical guy like you. I don't do a lot of positional breakdowns. So this is obviously this is my first year doing it for our podcast, and so this has been kind of a unique experience for me. But when we said, hey, let's take, we kind of placed out the format that we're going to do these draft previews for, and we wanted to look at late round guys. His name jumped out, and I was like, wow, Juice Scruggs, I got to know more about this guy. But yeah, like you said, I mean, this man's a true center. If we bring him in, he is going to be competing with Evan Brown for that spot. Evan Brown obviously has played really well the last 2 years that we've seen him in Detroit. And I think we brought him in because we saw something in him. But if we end up going with a later round pick to kind of compete with him, I think there's a chance that Scruggs could beat him out. I mean, this is a high motor guy, loves playing the game, really quick at the point of attack. I mean, it's almost imperceptible between his snapping the ball and getting that first hand on his defender. It is just lightning quick. The man's a really, really good athlete, and has the best name in the draft. So,
yeah, I actually had some of the same stuff. Good hands, powerful punch. Like, people know he's there. He is impactful at the point of attack. Quick positioning after the snap. And he's just a solid all-around guy. He's not elite in any area, but he is a guy who what you see is what you're going to get, and he'll go out there and he'll do the job. So I actually like Juice Scruggs. I think late round is where he should go. 5th round for me is where I have him graded. Coming in at number 9, I have Ricky Stromberg out of Arkansas, and you have Jackson Kirkland out of Washington. Ricky Stromberg, a lot of experience, center there at Arkansas. He does an amazing job picking up stunts and blitzes, and that's where he really shines, is communication, getting that protection called, and then getting out there and actually picking up those blitzers and stunts. He has good size, good power, but unlike Scruggs, who I think has probably the quickest snap to hand placement in this whole center class, Ricky Stromberg, one of the knocks on him is that he's a little late getting his hands up after he snaps the ball. And I know he's had some shoulder surgeries, and so I'm not sure if that's maybe a little extra scar tissue or something that's causing him to delay those arms. I don't know what's going on. That's not my area of expertise, but I do know that he's a little slower to get up, which can cause problems if you're across from a quick interior defensive lineman, say an Aaron Donald type. He's going to be inside of Stromberg before he has a chance to react. And you can't go anywhere if you don't have your hands in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, that I love Ricky Stromberg. He's going to be coming up a little bit later for me on my side of the line here. He's another one of those guys. I went pretty heavy center because I do think that's going to be a point of focus for the Seahawks. One of the things you'll see pretty consistently with, I think, both of our sides, but especially with my side, is going to be positional dexterity or flexibility when we kind of get up into these higher guys. Yes, these guys are listed as centers or have had a lot of experience as centers, but they can also come in and play guard. We've already talked about how, we've got these 3 positions along this interior line, and I think they're all technically up for grabs. I think Damian Lewis is going to be rounding into a really great player. I'm still not sure where he's going to be fitting in along that offensive line. I know we've got him right now at that left side. I think he could easily go back over that right side if that's where we like him, because I think he's better than anybody else we have currently on the right side, the interior there. Nothing against Phil Haynes. Phil Haynes is a good player, but I think that we're going to see somebody come in and really push for one of those guard spots. And even though, Stromberg is more of a center, most of these guys that play that position can also play guard. Jackson Kirkland, for me, this is a guy that we mentioned earlier. I had him, I think, in the same position actually on when we did offensive tackles. I think I had him at number 9 as well. This is a guy that has positional flexibility. The Seahawks know him really well, obviously playing at Washington University. I think that if he could have overcome some of his snake-bitten injuries that he's had during his college career, he'd probably be a little bit higher up on this because when he's on the field, he is an excellent player, really athletic blocker. I think he's listed as a tackle, but he could easily play on the inside and has experience on the inside. And I think that if the Seahawks do take a chance on him, that's where they're going to put him as one of those guard spots.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and correct you real quick before you receive.
Oh no! Already?
Hate mail from probably your family. Honestly, if I were to be honest here, that would be the University of Washington, not Washington University.
Oh my God! Oh wow! Yeah, sorry. Yeah, thank you very much. At least I didn't say WSU. That would have really gotten me in trouble.
Yes, it would have. So for me, Jackson Kirkland, very intriguing prospect. He's experienced. I like him at both guard and tackle. The problem is he's had some injuries, and the injury concerns are going to be red flags. They're going to be due diligence medical checks before guys have him on their draft board. So hopefully those are already done because draft is just right around the corner. He does have
less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, he has some problems with leverage. He is a taller prospect, which might be why he has those leverage issues. And that can be fixed with some coaching and a little bit of technique work. And hey, I'm a big fan of Costco, so anything Kirkland, I'm good with.
I knew you were going to say that.
All right, coming in at number 8. This is where I have Andrew Voorhees out of USC, and this is where you have Ricky Stromberg out of Arkansas. So Andrew Voorhees for me, very talented guard. He's, if he wouldn't have been injured at the combine, he had an ACL injury, really unfortunate. He's going to be one of those players that you draft and stash until next year because he needs to rehab that knee injury. And especially with these big guys, you want to give them plenty of time to recover from especially lower extremity injuries. And so sad news for him. He was the only major injury that came out of the combine. So I don't want to say that it was a relatively good combine, but it was just sad for him. He was on the bad end of that. He has a really good drive when he's run blocking. This is the guy who keeps his feet moving. He keeps his leverage. He can drive defenders off of those running lanes and open up a hole for those running backs to get through. And that's something I really like. He does struggle a little bit to anchor in pass protection. If somebody is using a bull rush move or a power move on him, and he tries to anchor down, to squat that lower body down and sink his hips, a lot of times he can lose that anchor and then he has a really hard time reestablishing it. And so that would be the one negative that I have for him. Once again, that's coaching, and we have great offensive line coaches in the NFL, so I don't have a problem with that in the future. I think they'll get that cleaned up.
Yeah, I mean, look, if there's a team that can fix his issues, it's going to be the Seahawks. We've got a great offensive line staff. Yeah, I've got Andrew Voorhees, I think, one spot higher. We'll see him in just a sec. I don't know if you want, if that's true, go ahead and click over. If not, then forget I said that, and we'll see him a little bit later. I really like him. I've been high on him this whole time, and there you go. See, he's my number 7. I think that if he hadn't hurt himself as badly as he did at the combine, we'd still be talking about him as a day 1 or an early day 2 or even a possibly day 1 guy. He was being mentioned as one of the top overall guards in the draft, interior offensive lineman. The one thing that kind of puts him a little bit farther down for me as to some of the guys we've got listed a little bit higher that play that guard position is he's just not a nasty guy. This is a nice guy. He's a very well put together guy, and he doesn't play with that kind of tenacity, which might be why they switched him from the right guard position to the left guard position later on in his career, where he can be a little bit more finesse. He even played left tackle, which is why I kind of put him up a little bit higher. Again, I'm big on positional versatility along the offensive line. He spent the last 7 games of his junior year at left tackle and acquitted himself pretty well. He didn't allow a single sack playing the tackle position. So he obviously moved back inside during his last year of college. But yeah, this is a guy who I think a lot of people were really high on going to the draft. Unfortunately, that injury does kind of knock him down a little bit, which is why he's more of a day 2 or early day 3 guy for me now. But if you've got the draft capital to pick a guy where he's going to be falling and stash him for a year, this guy's a great pick.
Yeah. I had a second round grade on him. That's where I think he would have been. He probably would have been my number 2 or number 3 guard if it not for that injury. And so that's where I have him graded. If you can get him in the 4th or 5th round because he's falling, you do it. I mean, that is a steal right there. So for those teams who have patience and can have a guy sitting on injured reserve, he's definitely somebody who can help a ball club in the future. My number 7 is Joe Tippmann out of Wisconsin. I like him. I know you like him a whole lot more than I do. He's much higher up on your board.
I love Joe Tippmann.
So I'll hit my notes real quick, and then you can just take it away and tell us all about Joe Tippmann. So he's 6'6", which is pretty tall for a center. In fact, he's so tall that he causes some leverage issues from the snap to the contact point. And I believe that's primarily due to his height. I think he's going to get a shot at center, but I think he'll eventually end up being an NFL guard. He has heavy feet when he's engaged. In fact, there are times when he's engaged with a blocker and he'll just stop moving his feet. And when you do that, you're going to end up losing that rep because you need to keep your feet moving, keep them engaged, because you might need to adjust. When you stop your feet and then the defender moves, now you're in a position where you're going to get little holding penalties and things like that because you're out of position. You weren't able to move your feet. He's experienced. He can walk into an NFL offensive line right now and contribute. So high floor guy. And yeah, I'm pretty big on him. I have a couple negatives, but they're not huge.
Yeah, I mean, I think you highlighted the negatives. I think one of the biggest reasons, at least for me, when I go back and watch tape, one of the reasons why he ends up setting his feet after he's engaged is because he is able to keep his hands on a guy and take him out of the play. And I think he relies a lot on that strength and his leverage being so tall to kind of take care of that. But yeah, he can definitely get sidestepped. But yeah, like you said, this is a guy who is going to be, I think, an early day 2 guy. He could fall. He's been falling in some mock drafts, even to the early 3rd round. Which I think is super low, and that would be a steal if you took him there. But this is one of those guys that everybody that met with him during the combine and I think at the Senior Bowl as well just loved it. He's very engaging, real friendly, good locker room guy. They love him at Wisconsin. Obviously, we like the Wisconsin guys. We've had a few have some pretty good success here in Seattle, and they're kind of known for their offensive line. But yeah, he's just a fun guy to watch. And like I said, everything that I've heard about him has just been that he's a great guy.
Yeah. So coming in at our 6th position, we both have Luke Whippler out of Ohio State. Real polished prospect, quick feet. He's got good athleticism. He can mirror really well, which is something you need. I think he's the best pulling blocker in this draft. When he pulls, gets around, you see him line up his next target, and he's able to blow open running lanes. This man is really accurate when he's pulling and blocking on that second level. Yeah, he's great. I like Luke Whippler. I'm a little bit higher on him than Joe Tippmann, which is why he's 6 on my list. But yeah, he can get off balance, struggle a little bit to regain that balance. But that's really my only negative on him. Real high on Luke Whippler.
Yeah, look, the only reason why I have Tippmann higher than Whippler is because, again, of that positional versatility. Joe Tippmann can play all along the offensive line. And it's not that I don't think that Whippler could play guard. He certainly could. We just haven't seen it. He is but I will say this. He's one of those nasty interior guys. He plays with a lot of ferocity. You can see it. High motor guy. Yeah, he's obviously one of the more experienced centers. I think his second year starting for the Buckeyes didn't allow a single sack or a quarterback hit, which is pretty damn impressive.
That is
for
impressive.
A sophomore.
And of note, the Seattle Seahawks had a very large contingent at the Ohio State Pro Day.
Yes, they did.
Now, they could have been looking at C.J. Stroud if they decided to go quarterback early. They could have been looking at Jackson Smith-Njigba if they're looking at wide receiver at 20 and he falls. But they did have some eyes at Luke Whippler. So don't be surprised if the Seahawks target Luke Whippler in this draft. If he's there, probably around the 3rd round, I could see the Seahawks taking a look at him.
Yeah, if we're going to draft our center of the future, I think he's probably him and one other guy in this draft are the guys that they're going to be zeroing in on.
All right. So now we hit our top 5. Number 5 for me is Olusegun Oluwatimi out of Michigan. And for you is also another center prospect, and that's John Michael Schmitz out of Minnesota. I have to say, Oluwatimi is probably my favorite offensive line prospect in this entire draft.
Okay.
He's the 2022 Outland Award winner, which is for the best interior lineman on the offense or defensive side of the ball, which means he beat out Jaelyn Carter for this award. He's also the Remington Award winner, which is for the best center in the nation. So in Seattle, they like those award winners. He has 2 of them, and he plays with some nasty. When he engages in the run blocking game, you know it. He has really good handwork. He plays with leverage. He wins more blocks than he loses. He has a great anchor in pass protection, and he plays with power at every level. I really like Oluwatimi. I think he's somebody who could start in this league for a decade or more.
Yeah. So just for a little bit of what is it? Clarity or to be honest, the other reason he's not on my list of my top 5 is because I didn't want to struggle to say his name, and that's the only reason. I do like him too. Michigan's a school that I think both of us have scouted a lot of guys from there, because there are a lot of guys that I think Seahawks are going to be taking a look at. This is definitely a guy who has everything you'd want out of your a high round offensive lineman, all the accolades, all the experience. He was a 3-year starter and never looked back. This guy, like you said, plays with a little bit of nasty. I do think he's another one of those guys that tends to kind of overreach a little bit, kind of has a little bit of I don't want to say a disconnect between his upper and lower body, but his feet can kind of stay back while he starts to reach a little bit, and sometimes he has to play a little bit of catch up. But other than that, his technique's pretty damn perfect.
Yeah, I think that's a great points. How about John Michael Schmitz?
Yeah, John Michael Schmitz. This is the other guy I was talking about when I said if the Seahawks are going to zero in and say, hey, we are going to draft a true center. This is the other guy besides Whippler they're probably should be taking a look at. I think he's graded as the number 1 center in the draft on most people's boards. And there's a reason for that. This man is technically pretty damn perfect. He's another one of those guys where you watch his game tape and he seems to just know exactly what to do every single time when engaging a defensive player. Looks like he knows what they're going to do before they do. He's really good at reading the defensive line and great communicator. Can day one, I think he could step in and be calling all the protections on the offensive line without any trouble, which is why I have him so high on my list.
Yeah, I actually have him higher on my list, and we'll get to that in a minute. But he's a very experienced offensive lineman. I believe he's the best center prospect in the class, despite how much I like Oluwatimi. He's had over 2,500 career snaps. So he's seen a lot of football in a good conference where they pride themselves on line play, offensive and defensively. He's a good blocker at the second level. When he climbs to those linebackers, he is very effective in space. He's a powerful blocker. He has good anchor in pass protection. I like John Michael Schmitz, and news out of the Senior Bowl was that NFL teams liked him too.
How can you not? Go look at the guy's profile picture. He's got the biggest smile I've ever seen.
All right, so that brings us up to their number 4. For me, I have Cody Mock out of the tackle out of North Dakota State, and you have Joe Tittman from Wisconsin. So Cody Mock has slightly shorter arms. People are projecting him to be an interior guy, even though he played tackle. I'm high on him at any position on the offensive line. He is truly a 5-position player on the offensive line. He's a former walk-on, which the Seahawks like. They like those guys who come in and battle, earn that scholarship, earn their playing time. But here's the thing. He walked on at North Dakota State as a tight end. Put on 100 pounds. And now he's playing offensive tackle. He's played 58 games in college. Talk about experience. I mean, this man, he has it in spades. He's got good lateral agility. He can mirror defensive linemen. He is one of the best run blockers in this draft, scoring a PFF grade of 91.2 for his run blocking last season, albeit against lesser FCS opponents. So take that as you will. But yeah, I mean, he's a very intriguing prospect, a utility offensive line player who can truly play across that offensive line. And even at the Senior Bowl, he proved to NFL teams that he could handle the center position as well.
Yeah, look, you know I love Cody Mock. I think he's pretty close to my number one guy on this list. Maybe he's my number two. And he was also pretty high up on my tackle list because, yeah, like you said, this guy can play every position along that offensive line. He played primarily tackle during his college years because, again, tight end conversion. He's got the athleticism, the good feet work, yeah, he acquitted himself pretty darn well. Again, yes, against lesser competition, but he looked like a man amongst boys. And he's just so fun to look at. I mean, this guy's got that big flowing red hair, that big beard. He's missing his two front teeth. He looks like an old school offensive lineman. I just love him. I want, if there is one offensive lineman that the Seahawks have to get in this draft, for me, it's Cody Mock. Because again, it doesn't matter what they want to do with him. He can play every single position. And if you just want to bring in a guy to see how that offensive line can work out, he's the guy to do it because you can literally plug him in and move guys around and he'll play every single position and do it really, really well. He'd never taken a snap at center until the Senior Bowl. He did it specifically at the Senior Bowl to prove to teams, look, I can do it all. And he was great. Teams love him.
Yeah, and news out of North Dakota State is he's a great teammate too. He's somebody who is a high character, high locker room guy, someone who will add to your team culture. And we all know Seattle has one of the best team cultures out there in the NFL, and he would be a great fit in that locker room.
Absolutely.
Coming in at number 3, this is where I have John Michael Schmitz, and you have Steve Avila out of TCU. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about Steve Avila and why you have him slated there?
This is a guy, yeah. So this is a guy that I didn't really know much about. I had to. I went back and started watching TCU's games mainly because we were looking at Max Duggan, who's a guy that was discussed when we talked about our prospects at the quarterback position. And your eye automatically goes to Avila along that offensive line. This is a big mountain of a man. He's not super tall, 6'4", but he is just as tall as he is wide. This man covers up some space. So if we wanted to put a guy in that center of the line that's going to make sure that no one's going to be getting through there, one gapping, he would be the guy to draft because yeah, he's a mountain.
Yeah, 100%. Real wide. I think he's 340 pounds. Is just a big guy. He is so big that when he sets up after the snap and puts his arms out, he covers 2 gaps. And so if anybody comes in, like, he's got a hand all ready for him. It's pretty impressive. Definitely something to watch. He is a better pass blocker than he is a run blocker. He started at guard and center, so there's that position versatility. I know I like that. Adam, you've mentioned that already, that's something you look for. An old school mauler type, which is interesting that he's got the mauler mentality and the mauler body, but he's a better pass protector than he is a run protector. I think
that might have something to do with his size. Again, this is a big guy, so it takes a lot of effort to move that body forward in the run game. But yeah, he could do it. He could definitely do it because you're not moving him. So if he wanted to push you back, he could do it. But he's a little slow, like you said, on his get off in the run blocking game. But that's really the only knock on him. Other than that, he's a damn good prospect.
Yes, he is. And in fact, I know some offensive line coaches are probably salivating to get their hands on him and mold him and use those tools for what they can be. He also gave up 0 sacks last year, which is impressive because they had some pretty good pass rushers there that they faced at TCU. Now, Steve Avila is actually my number 2 prospect as we look at our number 2 guys, and this is where you have Cody Mock. So obviously, I knew you were much higher on Cody Mock, and this is where I have Steve Avila.
Yeah, look, Cody, like I already said, Cody Mock is the guy. If the Seahawks are going to come out of this draft with just one offensive lineman, that offensive lineman needs to be Cody Mock. Would I be mad if they took Steve Avila first? No, because he's gonna go a little bit higher in the draft. He is, again, because of all those things that you see physically from him. But Cody Mock is just so versatile and so fun and just the coolest looking man on the planet.
Nice. All right. So our number 1 prospects are actually the same, and that is O'Cyrus Torrence out of Florida. I look at O'Cyrus Torrence and you see that nasty guard that you're looking for. I mean, he is an imposing run blocker. He gave up 0 sacks in his entire career. That's over 1,400 pass block snaps. He did not give up a sack. Great power at the point of attack. He has all the tools you're looking for. O'Cyrus Torrence needs to go in the first round. I think he will go in the first round. I think he's going to go somewhere mid-teens to mid-20s. And who knows, maybe the Seahawks will take him at number 20. If there's something he needs to work on, he does get a little impatient when he's blocking. You'll see him. He kind of looks antsy, like he needs to go do something when he's already doing his job. So just a little bit of that. That's going to be coaching. I don't have a problem with it. So O'Cyrus Torrence is clearly my number 1, and he is a pretty awesome guard to watch.
Yeah, and kind of a unique guy. Like we already talked about when we were talking a little bit earlier about this, size of guys. We were talking about Steve Avila especially. You're just a big guy. They weigh pretty much the same. They're both about 340 pounds. O'Cyrus Torrence is about 2 inches taller, and he is just muscle. This is not one of those big gut kind of, offensive linemen. This man is just a mountain and a rock. And he looks like it. He looks like a bodybuilder or like a power lifter. That's how he's built. And that's how he plays too, because he pushes guys around like those guys throw those tires during the competitions. It was kind of funny. He wasn't the number 1 draft guy when all the talking heads started about putting guys in their little slots around where they're getting taken. They were talking about a couple other guys, but he has since rocketed up. That he is far and away the number 1 interior guy on most people's draft boards, and should be because he is. There's nobody. There are no other players like him in the draft. He's unique in how he looks and how he the size, speed, athleticism, and how he plays the game. So yeah, that's why he's so much higher on people's draft boards, and might be the only interior offensive lineman taken in the first round.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting that we both had Peter Skoronski as our number 1 offensive tackle, and a lot of people are projecting him to be an interior offensive lineman at the NFL level because he has a little shorter arms. We left him off, at least I did, because he's my number 1 tackle. I think a team needs to at least try him out at tackle before they move him inside. And that's how the draft should play out. He should be drafted as a tackle. If he has to move in, he can kick in. But that's why he's not on this list. It is worth noting, though, a lot of people have him rated as the number 1 interior offensive lineman in their rankings.
Yeah, we both talked about this before we put these lists together, and we already both have a lot of guys that are on both of these offensive line lists, and because it is such a deep offensive line class, but I think it's just a little bit deeper on the interior offensive line, and I didn't want to put them on this list because I had to talk about these guys that I had on my list. Otherwise, yeah, he would have slotted in right there at that number 1 spot, and the reason is because Skoronski is just technically pretty much perfect. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the most athletic guy. He's not the strongest guy, but he's technically perfect. And that's why he's so high, and that's why he can move pretty much anywhere in that offensive line. I'm sure the man could play center. He's smart enough to play every position along that offensive line, so he could easily be the number one ranked offensive lineman at all 5 positions. But yeah, that's like you said, that's the reason he's not on the list, is because he's already on the list of tackle, and we can't say more about him other than he's going to be the first one off the list. And if he's not, teams missed. Teams missed.
There you go. This has been our top 10 interior offensive line draft prospects. We probably could have done a top 10 center prospects list because the depth of the center class this year is insane. So hopefully the Seahawks at least go out and get a guy to compete and be the backup. Yeah, I love what I see out of this class. There's our top 10 interior offensive linemen. Thank you for listening. As always, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.